Welcome back to the studio, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. It is drum reamp day. Continuing on, finishing this song Ernesto and I found in the archives, an old EGH tune called Probably Not. Guitars are all finished. You may have seen that video already. Today I'm doing a little bit of work on the drums. The overall drum track, yeah, they sound up pretty good. Little lifeless, which I think I can deal with in mixing. I can juice them up a little bit. But I wanted to try to add some space, some ambience, maybe even a little thickness or depth in it. And I figure instead of doing that with plugins and whatnot, I've got the room, so I'm just going to send some little bit of kick, snare, toms and whatnot back out in the room, play with some microphones, compressors, and see what I can create that way. And it's pretty cool. So here's what I have going. I have a pair of speakers. These are our speakers that always live here in the live room. Kind of set up next to each other, slightly angled, kind of as if it was the kit, you know, pushing out left and right in the room a little bit. In the middle, I have the good old Audio-Technica AT4080 ribbons in a Blum line. And then up higher and further back, I have a pair of, you can see, 1, 2, of Roswell Pro Audio Delphos, which is fairly common for me. Here's the, I'll show you the distance, kind of bird's eye view from the microphone to the speakers. So these are probably good 18 feet away, about 8 feet up. And the ribbons here, these are only about, I'd say 3.5 feet up. And we're probably about, somewhere about 9 or 10 feet away from the speakers. Now, I initially had these on the stands, which, you know, these good old speaker stands. I set those as low as they could go, which set them up maybe another foot up. So they were maybe head height. I didn't like it as well, so I stuck them on the floor and I put some bricks on them so they're just pointing up. And that worked quite a bit better, actually. I wish I could tell you why. It just did. So that's what I'm going with. And then I'm just sending, I basically, in Logic, I just set up a stereo send, and I sent the things that I wanted to come out to the room to that send, and I mixed the levels that I wanted, and then from there I can EQ on the board and all that stuff. So anyway, that is the room setup. Now let's go take a listen to what it sounds like. Let's start by just taking a listen to what the actual drum sound sounds like. Okay, so that's the drums. See, they don't sound bad. I mean, this was done 10 or 11 years ago. I believe this was my Pearl Session Custom kit. Do not remember what heads were on it, and I'm pretty sure the cymbals were all just variations of Peisty. I don't remember what I was mostly using at that time. But the kit's not bad. It's just, that's the thing, is it sounds good. It doesn't have a lot of character, so we're going to see if we can add a little bit of character to that. So starting off, let's listen to each pair of room mics on their own with none of the processing that I'm doing. And we'll start with the Delphos. Here, turn that up a little. Here we go. All right, so there's the Delphos. Here's the Audio-Technica 4080 ribbons. So this gives me different, just you know, right off the top you can hear obviously the condensers are a little brighter, the ribbons are a little bit darker, more full, plus being with the Delphos being further away and up higher, they're also going to have a bit more kind of airy space around them, at least how this room sounds. Now, that's fine. That sounds pretty good, but to create the room sound, I added some compression and some saturation with both of these. So let's go back to the Delphos. And what I'm doing is I'm running them into a Heritage Audio successor that I have started to fall in love with. That thing is great. I'll do a video on that sometime soon. And that is going into a pair of Rupert Neve 542 tape emulators, and I'm hitting them quite hard, actually. So let's hear just what that, let's see, keep that muted. Let me kick that on. And here is what that sounds like. Thickened things up quite a bit. It makes it quite a bit more exciting. Also gets a little boomy, so I did add a little bit of EQ from the Trident. I'm pulling a little bit of low mid and pushing a little bit of, I don't know, it's probably somewhere around the 2-3K area on the board. And here's what that sounds like. So I'll kick it on after a bar or two. Cleans it up, actually makes it feel brighter, which is fine, because if I go to those mics that are up there, I'm kind of looking for some of that little more exciting top end. So that's what those sound like. Now let's go to the Audio Technicas. They are going through my good old Dynamites, which I now have 2 of. I'm probably going to get more because those things are so much fun on drums. And it is feeding my Overstayer channel amp. I'm on the line input there, and I'm using the channel amp to add some, let's see, what did I end up with? A fair amount of third order harmonics. And that's something I love about that Overstayer, is not only is it a nice pre with a cool EQ, you can do second and third order harmonics on there. And I am hitting the input quite hard and adding it. You got the compressor doing its thing, and then you have the saturation from the harmonics just kind of fills things out and rounds it off a little bit. It sounds kind of cool. So here's what the Audio Technica sounds like with nothing, and I'll kick it on. The Dynamite it's aptly named. That thing is dynamite. It blows stuff up. Also adding a ton of gain, but that's fine. I am doing some EQ here as well. I am pulling, what am I pulling? Probably in the 500 hertz area, and I'm pulling a little bit of bottom end. By the way, both of these mics, I have the 50 hertz low end cut on both pairs of mics as well. So I'll kick this EQ on a couple bars in. Cleans it up a little bit, and for this, it was kind of cool with the big bombastic boomy thing, but with this, how many guitars are in this song and everything, and then there's a drum solo later on. If I wanted to use any of these rooms through that, I didn't want it getting too boomy, so I just wanted the character of the Delphos and the character of the Audio Technicas, what they give me with the ribbon being darker and fuller and the condensers being brighter and more open. I wanted those 2 kind of colors to work with, and then I wanted to hit the really hard with some outboard gear and a little bit of EQ. So how does that sound with the drums? We'll work backwards. I'm going to start with just our drum sound, and then I'll kick the rooms on underneath. Now none of this is mixed. I'm going to have these volumes loud enough so you can kind of hear what's going on, and then when I get to the mixing process, probably in the next couple days, I'll do another video with all that stuff too. So let's start. I'm going to roll our loop back a few extra bars. Here we go. Makes quite a difference. Now let's hear what the Delphos sounds like. I'll do the same thing. I'll start without, and then I'll turn it on. very different color. And that's kind of nice because I may want one color in one part of the song and a different color in another part of the song. So how do they sound with some music? Let me turn some bass and guitars back on here. There we go. Clean, there's the clean that. Where's my, found my pre-chorus guitars here. And of course, okay, cool. So here's what, I'll start with the Audio Technicas again, and now we have some music for reference. Drums only, and I'll turn the Audio Technicas on. Makes a big difference. And it's probably a little bit loud right now, but you get the point. All right, so now let's hear what the Delphos sound like. Completely different texture, which is cool. Again, that's exactly what I wanted. And it's kind of fun. It's like I have the space to do it. And it's fun to set some mics. I could go to town. I could put the mono mics out. I could do the wall mic. I could do the floor mic. You know, we could put the shotgun mics. There's a lot of things you could do because you're kind of just treating it like you have a drum set in the room. I know it's not exactly the same because we're pumping all the drums out through a set of speakers. But if you can push enough volume, and trust me, it is loud out there. I mean, it is as loud as a drum kit. I am trying to move some air in the room. If you can at least get it at that volume, then you can do fun stuff with some compressors and EQ and create a sound, and you can hear it. You can kind of create your room vibe with listening to all the music, which is kind of a fun way to do it, because then you can say, oh, you know, I tried probably half a dozen things before I landed on this, and the other ones didn't work so well. I even tried a few different mics, and I went back to this kind of typical setup for me, and then I just hit it with the outboard and went, oh, okay, there we go. Now I have some options that I can blend in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print all of these tracks in. Now, one thing I want to mention is we have possible latency to deal with here, and it all depends on the volume you want to have things at and phase, obviously. But since we are, not only do we have speakers to microphones, which would be like, say, drum kit to where your microphones are, and you got to make sure that distance is good, whatever that is, and check your phase to make sure your phase relationship is as good as possible. But we're also coming out of the computer and coming back in, which is adding some latency. And for me, my round trip right now is 3.6 milliseconds, which isn't bad. My buffer's at 32, my session's at 48. So that's not really adding a whole lot. I still may, once it's back in the box, nudge things a little bit if I need to. I never line my rooms up with the sound. The whole point of rooms is to get depth. When you line them up with the direct tones, you lose the depth. But I may nudge them a little bit forwards or backwards to find that sweet spot. Especially if I want to crank them, I might want to make sure that I have them like the distance perfect, or as perfect as I can. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and print all this. And then I have my rooms. So that's it. If you've got the room, you've got a speaker that you can send some drums, or anything for that matter, back out to. Have some fun with this. Throw up some mics, pull up some outboard gear, you know, put mics in different places, whatever, and just like record some cool ambient sounds and mix that stuff back in with your tracks. It's a heck of a lot of fun, and it's a great way to spend your time right now while half of us are on lockdown. So anyway, everybody, stay safe, have fun recording. We'll see you in the next video.